Good evening. Welcome to the Wheat Ridge Planning Commission for August 21st, 2014. May I have a roll call of the members?
Ann Brinkman,
Present.
Alan Bucknam,
Present.
Steve Timms,
Here.
Scott Ohm,
Here.
Emery Dorsey, Amanda Weaver, Silka Pop. Present. Thank you.
May we pledge of allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May we have approval of the order of tonight's agenda?
Second.
I need a first.
Madam Chair, I'll move to approve the order of tonight's agenda.
Scott, are you second?
Second, yeah.
Please vote.
Motion approved, 7-0.
Thank you. May I have approval of the minutes of August 7th, 2014?
I move to approve the minutes from August 7th.
Second. Please vote. Perfect. That's a perfect segue. Do me a favor, everybody, and put your phones on vibrate or off for this. Appreciate it. Now is the time for the public forum. This is a time for any person to speak on any subject not appearing on tonight's agenda. I encourage all the public to come and speak. I've said this a number of times. Is anybody out there? We have one. Did you want to come up and speak? Come on up. But you have to give your name and your address, but please. If it's not on that agenda, it's perfect timing. Thank you. We welcome. Okay, so give your first name, last name. Spell your last name if you don't mind.
Daniel Boyce, B-O-I-S-E.
And your
I
address?
live at 3433 Wadsworth Boulevard.
Perfect. What's your question?
What's going on the corner of 38th and Wadsworth?
I can't answer that, but staff?
I know there's a lot of opposition to it.
Well, we have a potential developer who's assembling the parcels for hopefully a mixed unit or a mixed use development, but we do not have a formal application yet.
And that's what I remember in a letter that you guys sent several months ago, which I reread. And then, but now it's Walmart. So is Walmart, you put the Walmart in and then the mixed use is maybe a couple of office buildings or?
You know, I can't-
I know you just said you don't have a plan.
We don't have an application. We do have interest from a 40,000 square foot grocery store, but it is an unnamed entity at this point.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Boyce. Is there anybody else out there? Okay, thank you. So now we will move on to the public hearing. The first is case number WS-14-02. This is a case that was continued from a public hearing on July 17th, 2014. This is a request filed by William Lyons Jr. for approval of a 13-lot major subdivision with a right-of-way dedication for property zoned Residential 1 located at 3301 Quail Street and 3345 Quail Street. And before you start, Meredith, can we just understand the rules of the game for this continuance?
Correct. Well, let me get this up first, please. We had a public hearing, and we took public testimony regarding the case. It was continued, and I think what we're here to do tonight is to talk about the revisions, not reopen the whole. I do not have a full presentation. I did include the minutes and some of the prior information in the packet for reference because I wasn't sure if you were all here. And it's sort of up to you to open the public hearing and have new testimony, but it should only be about the revisions. Right. Yeah, tried to include the background material.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure. Let's see, for the record, Meredith Recker, Wheat Ridge Community Development Department, and joining me at this staff table is Scott Brink, who's the Director of Public Works. This is case number WS 14-02, which is request for a subdivision plat on property zoned R1 at 3301 and 3345 Quail Street. I'd like to enter into the record the zoning ordinance case file and packet materials and the contents of this digital presentation.
Accepted.
And I would note that all notification and posting requirements have been met, therefore the commission does have jurisdiction to hear this case. So this probably should look familiar. This is the property in question, which is located north of 32nd Avenue down here on the south and on the west side of Quail Street. We did review a subdivision request for the property back on July 17th, but the case was continued due to modifications to comply with the Army Corps of Engineers requirements regarding stream modification. And this is the graphic portion of the plat that we looked at on July 17th. North is to the top. Up in this location, 33rd Avenue is down here across the south. Quail Street is over here on the eastern side. There were a total of 14 lots, and at that point, the drainage report and the plan reflecting the drainage report showed all of the proposed drainage to be piped. The applicant, the public hearing was continued until tonight, August 21st, and the applicant did receive approval of their nationwide permit on July 25th, which does authorize them to build the project in accordance with the modifications that we're talking about tonight. So, this is the old plan. This is the new plan. And again, north is to the top, 33rd Avenue is down here at the bottom, Quail Street over on the eastern perimeter. We still show 33rd coming in and extending west with a cul-de-sac bulb called Quail Court extending north. However, the plat and drainage system has been modified so that the stormwater enters the site and runs in an open channel in a tract called Tract G at this location. And when it hits the street, it is then piped and then daylights again here at the north portion of the cul-de-sac and then runs into Lena Gulch. Now the minor tributary that's called Quail Creek, which is part of the drainage situation on the site, still has to be accommodated on the property, and so those flows are still going to be piped along the eastern edge of the property in a drainage easement. The drainage design with the open channel kind of in the southeastern portion affects primarily the lots on the east side of the cul-de-sac called Quail Court. And it actually reduces the number of lots from 6 down to 5. So essentially, these first 2 lots, or actually the first 3 lots, lots 1, 2, and 3, now are lots 1 and 2 and have this conveyance that goes through. And what they've done is divvied up the property to accommodate that. And so the lots on the eastern side of Quail have been reconfigured. The lots on the western side of Quail Court are still the same. And the only difference with those is that they have been, they are renumbered. So instead of 14 lots in the subdivision, we're now down to 13. And that's the same scenario for the 2 parcels over on Quail Street. They also have the same configuration, but also have been renumbered. Because of the open channel that extends from the cul-de-sac bulb up to the Lena Gulch area, Tract A, which is that whole floodplain piece with the actual gulch running through it, has increased in size by about 2,000 square feet. So we've got less lots, we've got drainage and a pipe and natural channel, which we think will be an amenity for some of the lots. The amount of open space has increased, and the lot sizes on the east side of the subdivision have increased as well. There are a couple other items of concern that were brought up at the July 17th meeting. The first of one is the issue of flag lots. There was a lot of discussion about Lot 11, which is that westernmost lot, which has a large buildable area and then a long driveway, or I guess a pole piece that connects to 33rd Avenue. And we were, asked about if alternate designs were considered and so on. Now, we do allow flag lots per the subdivision regulations. They are not always encouraged, but if they are to be used, there are 3 criteria. And those are that the minimum width of the pole portion abutting a public street is 25 feet, and in this case, it is 4 feet in width. And this figure does not reflect the cul-de-sac bulb. When you have the bulb in there, that's really more like 80 feet by the time you get the circumference of the bulb. The second is that the use of the flag lot design is necessary for the effective development of land. As I indicated at the last hearing, we did look at different designs, and this was the design that we considered the most desirable based on street layout and drainage, and the community development does support this design. And finally, that the proposed design does not effectively affect public safety and provides access. Again, the subdivision design was reviewed and approved by the Wheat Ridge Fire Protection District, and the driveway will have to meet the standards with at least 24 feet of paving. I would note that Lot 11, it's a little bit different than a lot of the flag lots we see. A lot of times we see where you've got a piece of property with a house on the end, and then with kind of a big rear yard, and people want to subdivide off that rear piece to provide another dwelling unit site. This is a little bit different because it's specifically been designed, and not only that, but it does exceed the R1 minimum standards and is over 20,000 square feet in size. So the applicant did provide a couple renderings about what they anticipate construction on Lot 11 to look like. So in this situation, north is over on the right-hand side. 33rd Avenue comes in with the temporary cul-de-sac bulb, and then the driveway extends north. And again, this lot here, Lot 10, like I say, they're set back quite a ways from this. I don't think it'll have the feeling of looking directly into their backyard. There's also some pretty nice buffering with this large side yard on Lot 10. So that's what they were thinking the lot layout might look like. And then this would be a rendering. And they probably will be able to address that a little bit more about what they think that how that lot will develop. So the other question that came up with regard to the subdivision design was the issue of fill that was being put on the property. And the applicant had indicated there would be about 3 to 6 feet, kind of depending on the location, less fill dirt down at the southwest corner and more up at the northwest corner. So this is a plan view of the subdivision again. 33rd Avenue down here, north is to the top. This is Quail Court. And they are showing 2 section lines where they have provided a section drawing or a cross-section to show that fill area. So one's further down on the south, and then one's at the very northern end. And that drawing is here. And I'll let them go into that a little bit more about how that potentially does or doesn't impact the adjacent properties in the area. So, having said all that, staff has concluded that the revised subdivision plat is consistent with the approval by the Army Corps of Engineers. Staff further concludes that the plat is consistent with R1 zone district standards and all requirements of the subdivision regulations have been met. Therefore, We are giving a recommendation of approval with 3 conditions, and those are actually the 3 conditions that were on in the suggested motion during the last hearing, too. Those have not changed. And so that does end my presentation. I'd be happy to try to answer questions.
Thank you. Starting from my left, Commissioner Buckman. Commissioner Weaver?
I've just got a lot of questions about the drainage because I am on the property just north of this. And I can tell you from my experience, and I was just walking on the property that is north of Lot 12 on Quail. And first of all, when it rains, it all drains down Quail in a river formation, and it's all open ditch on the right-hand side of the school. And I'm having a really hard time, and being a receiver of Lena Gulch as well, I'm kind of shocked that those lots are so close to Lena Gulch, having seen the floods of the last year go through here and the amount of water. And I mean, and that was with no development on here. And I'm concerned that this isn't going to be enough sort of drainage mitigation. And if it all is going into Lena Gulch, what's going to be the impact? Because Lena Gulch then goes down and makes a curve and sort of slams into 3 houses that are right there that stormwater has created a devoted channel to. But what's the volume that's going to change off of that impervious surface going right in there? Because right now it's just going down into the farm and creates a river and goes into Lena Gulch, and it's all farmland, so it doesn't matter. But I just, tell me about that, because
I'm
I'm,
actually going to defer that, probably both to Mr. Brink and also to the
Okay.
applicant's engineer. We have reviewed and approved a drainage report, and my discussions with other staff members, and sort of based on a lot of the testimony we heard last time, it's going to be better than it is now, because right now there is no
Okay.
accommodation for drainage, and with the improvements they're putting in, that.
I mean, I'm in muck boots back there at that same level where this development's, essentially a half a block away. So I'm really, I mean, it's not that I'm against it, I'm worried that it's going to be a drainage nightmare. And I just wanted to mention as well, along with that question, is not only is the Quail Street a drainage issue going into Lena Gulch. So my first question is, can Lena Gulch accommodate the extra drainage going in for those houses downstream, especially those that ended up flooding last year? But the lot, sorry, let me make sure I have my directions right. South? This is south.
Yeah, this is north.
Yeah, south of what is currently Lot 12, about 20 feet from that property line where that street would go through, there is already a stormwater drainage going onto that property that I'm not sure, it's a longer story, but I was, some constituents called me to come see it, and they've got, that whole bottom of their yard is reeds.
The Barnhards,
Yes.
so they're,
And they have an open irrigation ditch that I don't know what ditch company it is that goes along the back of that property that is filled with water,
well,
and it's running.
that's actually, I don't know if I'd consider that did you say an irrigation ditch, or?
Yeah, and so that would be my second
That's
question.
what we keep calling the tributary to Lena Gulch. It's called Quail Creek, and those are the waters that the developer is having to accommodate because it already comes onto the property, and they have to
It's a lot of water.
maintain historic flow, and that's,
Yeah.
those flows would be going into this pipe. So,
I mean, I just want to make clear to everyone that it is not a temporary creek. It's a ditch with reeds growing around it, and it's a significant up to your knees kind of water feature, if you will. So I guess that's, just having experienced that, that's my concern. I think that's all I have for now, thanks.
Okay.
Regarding Lena Gulch, with this proposed development and the grading plan, they're staying completely out of the 100-year floodplain, the 100-year flood elevation, so the development has no effect on Lena Gulch or its ability to carry water or retain water. When the flood elevations are determined by the urban drainage district, the maps were just recently revised based on some new modeling, and that does account for full development along the whole gulch here. So that, as far as what this development contributes to Lena Gulch, is a drop in the bucket compared to what's in the model there. So,
Okay, but didn't you say that all of it's going out to Lena Gulch?
correct.
All the stormwater?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So you're saying there's going to be no change, essentially?
No change as far as Lena Gulch is concerned.
But it's already a flooding situation. Basically, when it rains hard, it's coming down Quail Street. Is what I'm saying is that it's already a problem. And
Yeah, I mean, regarding Quail Street, based on the comments we heard at the last meeting, was there's a lot of runoff that comes from the south beyond this development that comes down Quail Street. This development will not contribute any more to that, but in fact, they are building picking up some of that water on Quail Street and diverting it through the development to Lena Gulch. So,
okay, so they've
so
accommodated
Quail Street
that.
probably still is going to have some drainage problems that it has now, but being they're intercepting some water and taking it the other way, it should help some.
Okay, I just have animals back there, but if I had a house back there, I'd.
Sure.
Yeah.
Any more? Nope. Commissioner Dorsey?
Oh, I think the last time we talked about this, it was the Corps of Army Engineers did their evaluation on it. They said everything would be okay. What with raising or adding fill, and then taking some of that water off of Quail Street, like you were just saying, would alleviate some of that water that's been plaguing Quail Street all along. We're not creating any more water. The way I'm looking at it, it's the same water. It's just there's more mitigation because of the drainage and the pipes and all that they're proposing to put in here. So I think it's more of a mitigation as far as the rainwater than adding to it. We're not adding any more rainwater. It's the same rainwater.
Go ahead. Yes.
Just to clarify, I completely understand and agree with you. What I'm concerned about is that water going into Lena Gulch earlier. So right now, it's draining down Quail onto farmland, and that's just fine. It's doing what water naturally does. If it's draining into Lena directly, there between where it drains out onto Quail onto the farmland and a block up where it would be going into Lena Gulch, it's making a distinctive curve. So I was just kind of concerned about I realize it's the same volume, but the volume is going to be entering farther up the stream by a block, and then it's taking a very strong curve, and that was where we had a lot of the flooding last year. I mean, it becomes a raging river of about 50 feet across when it's heavily inundated. So that would be my concern of those 4 property. Do you know where I'm talking about? So just north of this,
So up here,
you see with yeah, I guess you can't see me pointing at it. Do you see the right-hand turn that it makes as it goes through the property and then it goes basically north-south? That turn is an engineered huge wall of water that storm drainage has engineered quite well. But I'm just wondering, right now, the water coming off Quail is basically going down that old right-of-way between 11-100, north-south.
oh, I see.
So it's going directly down there into Lena Gulch over my property, which it's not hurting anything by doing that. If it's entering further up, that amount of water is going through engineering before it hits that curve. That's all I'm trying to communicate. Thanks.
Commissioner Dorsey, did you have anything else? No. Okay. Commissioner Timms?
No questions for staff.
Commissioner Pop?
My only part of that conversation is just that I'm acknowledging the volume. I mean, ultimately, when you pave farmland, the water, it's going to flow a lot faster and it's not going to be absorbed. So while the amount of rainwater falling out of the sky is not going to change, the amount being absorbed by the ground is. So you're adding to that issue as well. So I guess my question is just, hey, if it turns out that there are issues in the end, what are the options? Is the city stuck with the problem? Is there anything that we can do to go back to the engineers? How would we fix it if there is a problem?
That's a good question. Scott, do you have any thoughts on that?
Maybe you have to define what the problem would be. I guess I'm having trouble understanding if there's a problem, what kind of problem we're talking about. I mean, Lena Gulch, there is a 100-year flood elevation established that, that's predicted by a model. That doesn't mean that it could be, if something happened like happened in Boulder, for example. I'm not sure what we would do about something like that. But as far as the water getting to how it's being conveyed to the creek through this new development, they have basically the water's going to carry two different ways. One is through the channel that's already being preserved. The other is through the pipes, the two larger pipes that are going to convey most of the larger heavy volumes of water. And when it reaches the gulch, and maybe in the developer's engineer's presentation, he could kind of explain at the outlet there's a riprap system, maybe even an energy dissipation system that slows the water down a little more before it gets to the gulch there and prevents erosion control. But yeah, I think that's how the drainage is intended to operate there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just, who's left holding the bag. I know it's hard to trace back and say, oh, it was definitely this, and I don't live there and I'm not an engineer. But if someone who lives there suddenly season after season after season sees a big change, I think at that point you would be able to. So let's just say hypothetically that the residents there notice a significant change. Is that just the tax dollars of Wheat Ridge taxpayers now who have to, hire engineers, do something to remediate it further? Or is that something that we can go back to the developer with?
I'm not quite sure what the policy would be.
Okay.
We would definitely want to study it,
Sure.
obviously, and if there was some sort of quick fix, I just don't know.
Sure. That's just a thought I had.
Thank you. Commissioner Ohm?
I have no questions for staff. I have some questions for the applicant's consultants.
Okay. I have one question, and you're probably going to push it to the applicant, but I just wanted, can you go to the view that talks about the new stream, tract
Track G?
G? Yeah.
So, this is the revised plat, Track G.
Not that one, not that picture, but with the houses on it.
Oh, the cross-section?
Well, yeah, the cross-section, thank you. Yeah. Oop, the other one.
This one.
Yeah. Here's my only question. Did staff look at, I'm not so concerned about Lot 6, I'm concerned about Lot 5 and where the house is placed in relation to Lot G and the conveyance of the water. Was that a concern, or did staff look at that, or?
Guess I'm not quite sure.
So,
So here's Track G,
yeah,
and here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
yep,
So you're concerned about this lot?
yep. So if you go back to that other picture, that other slide, you can see where they've placed the house on 5. Go down to 5.
This is the detention pond. This is 5 right here.
Right, but that little thing in between 6 and 5 is the new track G, right?
Well, it becomes part of Tract A. So it's
Okay.
Tract G over here, then it goes under the.
Okay, Tract A. Let's call it Tract A. So is there a concern, or did staff look at the drainage? Since you're opening this up wider, and granted the 100-year floodplain is kind of doing that little trapezoid, that little triangle thing, is there any concern since they widened it with relation to where the proposed 5 house is?
Well, and again, you know, this is a rendering. This is
Right.
not an exact building location.
Okay.
Tract 5 has gotten significantly larger.
So it could move, the house could move over?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
let's go back. Here's lot 5.
Right.
I don't know how big it is. I want to say 17,000 square feet.
Yeah, yep.
So that's a pretty darn big lot. The minimum for the R1 zone district standards is 12,500, so they're, 5,500 square feet over what the minimum is.
Okay.
And they can only have 25% building coverage. So I think that within itself helps limit that proximity.
To that A, okay. I'll follow up with the applicant. Thank you. I just wanted to see if the staff had any comments on it.
Sure.
Okay, before we go to the applicant, is there anybody? Okay, we're ready for the applicant. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see, so, There you go.
So do me a favor, first name, last name, address,
Bill Lyons.
for both of you when you speak. Thank you.
My office is at 6143 South Willow Drive in Greenwood Village. I'm the applicant, and I think Meredith did a pretty good job explaining what the changes have made. When we were here last, we heard what the commissioners were saying, as well as the public. And so we went back and did these couple exhibits to show the flag lot, showing how we're 70% wider than what is required by the new guidelines. But I don't think that's probably, I believe that should probably be resolved. I think, where's the exhibit here? So everybody's seen this already, where it's located, this plot plan. Once again, we showed this last time, so there's probably not any real reason to go into the entryway unless you would like to talk about it. We have a monument out in front with these brick columns with a woodwork on the top, which will help lead down into the street. We have the street meandering somewhat to give it a little bit of character. These homes here are the ones that we've built these in another location, but it'll be the exact same homes. So you can tell that, they have tile roofs, stone and stucco, nice pitches on the roof, so it has that European feel. No siding on them, and we have quite a bit of clip roofs and hip roofs going on them. This is a street that they're on. This exhibit, Meredith, I think, did a good job. As she pointed out, the flag lot has 43 3/4 feet wide. We've got approval from the fire department, and there's 59 feet from the closest house to the property line. This elevation, which she showed you already, if you'll notice, the driveway itself is 24 feet wide. We met with the fire department and getting their approval on this home and this flag lot. And the sections, I'd like to spend a minute just on these sections. We'll talk about this section here first, and then this section here. The next exhibit shows this. What we've done, this is one of the 4 houses where this section goes through. It butts up to 33rd Quail, excuse me. And these are the new houses that we're going to be building here. One thing I want to point out, if any of the homeowners are here this evening, and that is that wherever the property lines meet, we're not changing that dimension 1 inch. It's going to blend in perfectly with the back of their yards. And then where the house is, what we're showing on average, the calculations were done by our civil engineer, and on average we're raising the site 3 feet in general, some being lower, some being higher. And then this lower section here was at the bottom of that section. I'll go back up. This next exhibit is this section that's going right through here. So this house and these other lots that we have. So you can see that the amount of dirt we're bringing in isn't going to create a mountain or a hill. And in fact, our houses are going to be shorter and lower than the houses that are along the budding street. So we thought the neighbors would like to know that. And this is the Corps of Engineer letter. And that just about does it. I think Mark from Gene Engineering can talk more in depth about the drainage. I'll give you my input. I've been told that the drainage report and all the calculations have been done, which was spent quite a bit of time on, is that what we heard last time, that there's quite a bit of, there's water coming in along down this street here. And our understanding is we're widening this catch basin up here, so the volume of water which is coming down here by us developing our property will be less into the future. And knowing that we only have 25% coverage on the lot, and these lots, we far exceed the 12,500. In fact, our smallest lot is 14,900 and change. Our biggest lots, and I think there's 4 or 5, are in the 22,000 square foot dimension. So with only 25% coverage, I think there's quite a bit of pervious property there as well. And I'll let Mark speak to that from Gene Engineering. Or should I take your questions now, or should we turn it over to Mark?
Why don't you both speak and then both
thank you.
stand there? How's that?
Thank you. Mark Bishop, B-I-S-H-O-P. I live at 3645 Lewis Street, Wheat Ridge.
Thank you.
I'm here with for Gene Engineering, and I guess I'll just start right in on the drainage here as the concept, if you will. As you said, it feels like this tributary here feels like an irrigation ditch because it's always running with water. And one of the things that we had to prove to the Corps is that we would maintain the ability of that water to sustain the wetlands that we're leaving there. So what's happened is at the beginning of this pipe system here, that water is going to come down into a basin here, and yeah, there we go. So what happens is the water comes down here, and there's a diversion structure at the beginning of this. And it takes all that low flow, all that continuous flow, into an inlet here, and then that comes through across this little small pipe here, and then feeds into the channel. Another small pipe comes back, feeds into the channel, another small pipe, and then it comes out here. So to address the concern at this end, excuse me, to express the concern down at this end, all right, what's happened is we've diverted almost the only water that will hit that is in essence whatever falls directly on this place, or whatever that diversion structure can take, which is the low flow, the base flow water that will come through the existing channel and out. All other waters will come back through and go out here and get into a dissipating structure that will slow the flows down and introduce them in an orderly fashion or in a low velocity fashion into Lena Gulch. As far as Quail Street goes, the flows that are on the west side between 32nd and 33rd are handled in an inlet here and then conveyed down to this area inlet here. Once again, for in the low flow or the base flow situation, we'll capture that water for the sustenance of the wetlands. Any larger flow than that overflows this, so the combination of that, this existing culvert here, and the base and the 100-year flow coming from the south will all be collected and will overflow that diversion structure, enter into this collection area, and then be diverted around the subdivision to the north and into Lena Gulch. So that's the basic, I guess, drainage system as we have it now. As far as your concerns about adding more flow, what I think to be representative about this is this is about 6 acres of development. The basin that is tributary to this point here is about 250 acres. So when you start adding, look at that ratio, we just really aren't adding very much. When you look at the FEMA study or the urban drainage study, it accounted for all of this being developed in this area, and it's what they established their floodplain limit line to was based on this being developed. So that's all we can go on, to be truthful, is what they've established as a floodplain, and we've stayed out of it and worked around it. So I guess unless you have any other questions, I'm more than happy to try and clarify more, but that's where we're at right now. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll start on my right this time. Commissioner Ohm?
Would I be correct that Tract A would be vegetated, right? Revegetated?
Tract A will remain natural.
Remain natural? Okay. Undisturbed?
Undisturbed.
And then what is Tract B's purpose?
Tract B?
Yeah, Tract B. It says,
I think that's the water quality pond. If I can't quite read it on the screen.
yeah, the water quality. So what water is it treating, I guess?
It is treating, it's treating the water out of the streets. So it treats the low flow out of the streets.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Pop?
I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Timms?
No questions at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Dorsey?
I have no questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Weaver?
Yes, I have questions. Just so you know, I think the drainage plan that you have done seems fine to me. What I'm concerned about, and what I also want to present to everyone here, is that have you talked to Consolidated about their discharges? So, because Consolidated controls the amount of water coming through Lena Gulch, and I think that the thing that I want to emphasize here, both to the city and to everyone here, is that having lived on this gulch now for 4 years, I have experienced 3 to 4 times 100-year flood levels down this gulch. And so we're talking about a large amount of water, and Consolidated Water controls that flow. So when we flooded last year, you know, I was out watching the gulch because I have animals out there, and their reservoir was about to top, and that's when they released a heck of a lot more water down that gulch. And all I can say is it was terrifying. Okay, it was 50 feet across, and you could have rafted Lena Gulch. So I guess I just want us to sort of step back, and my questions are more about how is the city, going back to what Commissioner Pop brought up, is how is the city going to handle this kind of water, and I know that you can only deal with models from FEMA, and I'm just trying to convey that I've experienced these, and it's happened, what we call a 100-year flood has happened several times in the last year, and I'm concerned not only for your development because of those parcels right there, but just sort of how we're handling water through that area, because I can't convey enough the amount of water in a flood event that's taking 2 right-hand turns. And it's basically slamming into where this development is, making a turn, and then slamming in a block down to another turn. And then it's coming onto an agricultural area where it can spread out a little bit. So really, again, I'm not against this. I just want everyone to be aware of what this water really looks like when we talk about flood drainage. That's really all. So did you have any conversations with Consolidated, or does the city have any? Because I've been learning a lot of this, obviously, since I've been experiencing these floods.
Yeah, I can say that since the big floods last fall up north and west of here, after that happened, several entities actually, Consolidated, Urban Drainage District, City of Wheat Ridge, Lakewood, we all met several times with Consolidated to look at the whole emergency procedure on the dam there as far as their procedures and timing for when you lower the dam, at what levels, of the reservoir there should it be lowered and how fast and so forth. So that's all been re-reviewed, and the emergency plan is being updated right now as we speak, just based on the knowledge we have of, the modeling that was done previously and based on what happened last fall. Because you're right, the reservoir did get really high, and a lot of people got nervous, and it provided a good learning opportunity to redo all. Unfortunately, nothing happened, but it was a great opportunity to take a step back and say, okay, what if that happened here?
Yeah, exactly.
Or do we really have the right plan in place? So that's being reviewed right now, and urban drainage is leading the charge on that. So.
All right, thanks. I just kind of wanted to know that everybody was talking about
And I
that.
think for clarification purpose, so what Commissioner Weaver is talking about is Consolidated Mutual has a water holding reservoir at 27th and Youngfield. And ultimately, it's their water, and it is held in place by the Maple Grove Dam. Does that sound right? Maple Grove Dam. And they have the ability to release flows when they feel it will overtop. So even though they're the water district provider, they also are involved in the drainage flows because
And
of
agricultural
yep,
water and
yep.
all these other things.
So.
That's all, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Buckman.
I have no questions, but just a comment to the applicant that I appreciate the extra work they and effort that they went to re-present their application, and I really appreciate the work that went into preserving the existing wetland tract that has gone in, that's in this application but was not represented on the first one. So thank you.
And I have no questions. So with that, it's time
Thank you.
to, thank you very much. It's time to hear from the public. Thank you. So here's how this works. I will call the one name that's on here. One name that's on here. And then if anybody else wishes to speak that didn't sign up, you're welcome to come up. The way it works is you give your first name, last name, spell your last name for the record, your address, and then speak to us. And we will convey the questions to the applicant and to staff. But you need to address to us because we're the ones hearing the case and we're the ones that hear your concerns, okay? Not that we have the answers, but this is how it works. So, I'm assuming, Mr. Lyons, that you signed this just because, yeah, okay, just checking. I was like, is there another Bill Lyons in the room? Okay, just checking. I have one name, and that is Debbie Perry. Come on up, please. Thank you.
My name is Debbie Perry, and it's P-E-R-R-I. I live at...
Could you close that back door for me? Thanks. It always happens. Go ahead. Thank you.
I live at 3831 Miller Street in Wheat Ridge, and I wrote a letter to Meredith. I was here at the first meeting, and I had some concerns, so I wrote a letter to Meredith thinking that it would be forwarded on to the Planning Commission, but it wasn't. So I'm going to read my letter, and then I have some other things that I want to say. Hello, my name is Debbie Perry, and I am the property owner of the land directly west of the proposed development entitled Quail Hollow. I am writing this letter to you to express some of my concerns regarding this development and how it will impact my property and the rest of the neighborhood. I was present at the meeting on July 17th when Mr. Lyons presented his plans for the proposed subdivision. At that time, he stated that his plans included changes in the elevation of the property up to 6 feet. My concerns relate to this change in elevation and how it will affect the historical flow of water and the potentially negative effects this will have on my property and the homes and properties all the way to Route Street. You are all aware of how badly this whole area floods during times of heavy rains. Last September, when we had days of torrential rains, all of the water coming down from 26 flooded this whole area. met with Meredith on Friday, August 8th, to discuss my concerns and to get clarification on some of the specific plans. When I asked her about these elevation changes and how they will affect the historical flow of water on my property, she said that she was unable to answer that and suggested that I talk to a city engineer. And this is where it changes. I have spoken to one, but at the time I wrote this letter, I said I have not been able to do that yet. She did, I read over the paperwork distributed at that meeting on July 17th and also the minutes of the meeting, and nowhere in either of these documents does it address drainage to the west of the proposed subdivision. Water flows downward, and my property and the homes west of me on Route Street are all lower than this proposed development. It stands to reason that we will bear the brunt of this water drainage during times of heavy rain. Another concern I have with the change in elevation deals with any future development and the possibility of continuing 33rd Avenue to the right-of-way on Route Street. If 33rd Ave is 6 feet higher than Route Street, how would you logically join the two right-of-ways? The elevation change of this road from the east boundary of my property to Route Street could be 6 feet, which would make my property basically unbuildable. Finally, if this development is raised up to the 6 feet as proposed, what plans are there to make it not appear unsightly to the neighbors to the west? If you have seen how the elevation change was handled when Applewood Baptist Church did their parking lot, you will know that when you are standing to the west of the parking lot, looking east, what you see is a hill of dirt topped by a 6-foot stockade fence. It is very unsightly, and I'm wondering if this is a plan also for this development. And since I wrote this letter, I did receive a response from Dave Brosman, and he said that the elevation change is going to be more on the east side at Quail, and it will flow down, and my property will be pretty much at the same elevation, but I do have questions about the drainage. He said on the west side, there will be drainage ditches that run from the cul-de-sac. Can I use this? Sure. From the cul-de-sac right here, all the way down. And I'm wondering, are the ditches going to be open? Is it going to be just open water? And then I was also wondering if the drainage ditch starts at the cul-de-sac. Is that going to be, this is a right-of-way that has been dedicated in case 33rd is ever connected to the other, to Route Street. Are they going to put that water flow underneath the street? Are they going to leave it above the street? It just wasn't clear in the plans that I looked at. And then another thing that they said is that it calls for a concrete retaining wall of up to 3.9 feet that runs along the east side of his property, west side of my property. Am I going to have to look at a concrete wall? Is that how it's going to be left? Are they going to do any kind of landscaping? Are they going to put any kind of fence up? It just kind of makes me wonder what it's going to look like on the west side of the property.
Does anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you. I've written down the questions. The applicant heard your questions. We'll call them back up. Okay, thank you. Okay, so Ms. Perry was the only one that wrote her name down. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? Okay, yeah, come on up, please. Thank you. And you can lift that mic up a little bit without touching the, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
My name is Brian Carter, C-A-R-T-E-R. I live at 2290 Crest Drive in Lakewood. And I just wanted to address the storm drainage water issue. It's been said 3 or 4 times by people that they were not anticipating any more water. But I can't help but think that on that property, if you covered 20 or 25% of that property with asphalt, concrete driveways, sidewalks, that's water that's not going to absorb into the dirt that's there now. So you could potentially have an increase of water flow by 20%. And with the addition of blacktop, sidewalks, gutters, that water flow will get to Lima Gulch a lot quicker. So I think you're going to have water increase. I think you're going to have water flow increase, and I think it's going to get to Lima Gulch a lot quicker. And I think it's potentially disastrous for that. I mean, I just don't think, and it could be 20 to 30% covered in asphalt and blacktop. And water doesn't absorb into that like it does the dirt right now. And it's going to get to Lehman Gulch a lot quicker down those streets and gutters. So I think you're definitely looking at an increase of water, and it's going to move faster. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I saw another hand back there. Come on up, please. Thanks for coming. And now you're going to have to lower that mic. I'm just guessing.
Good evening. My name is Arthur Gibbard, Gibbard, and I live at 3415 Quayle Street. Now, what the last gentleman said, I agree what he said there about the extra water that's going to be off that, all this new plat of stuff with homes, and because right now that land there absorbs the water that comes down there. And on these last rains we've had lately, the water comes down our street, and there's a ditch across by the school there, and it overflows that completely, and the water comes down through our yard, and it's at least 6 inches high. So this is one of my big concerns. And the other concern of mine is on this build-up of the land, where does it come against my property? What's going to happen there? I don't know, or it comes down, as I say, I'm backing onto all these properties on Quayle Street. Can the gentleman answer that question for me, or later maybe? And also, I've been trying to find who owns this property at this point.
Land Development, Steve McKendry being the principal.
Okay. So they are paying taxes on this land? No, you don't know. Okay, this isn't I couldn't find out. Okay, but that's my main concern with it all. And as I say, with all this concrete, blacktop, that's going to increase that flow down there, which that actually absorbed on that in that land. And then what about the wetland? What's happening there? Can anybody answer that?
So I'll take a stab at that one based on what we've heard so far. The wetland's not being touched. And in fact, they've had to make sure that they didn't touch it, which is why we're having this continuance.
Mm-hmm.
They had to address it by eliminating one lot and putting that conveyance in between.
I couldn't see the elevation of how much fill they were going to bring in, actually, but I wonder how that's going to affect my property.
Okay.
I mean, is it going to taper down there? Is it going to sit up here? When I look at the property, there's a tree out there, and I looked, and 6 feet high. Man, it's unreal if they bring 6 feet of fill dirt in there.
So here's what I'll make sure the applicant does is when the applicant comes back up, I'll have him show those cross elevations that he showed before. To give an example, I will say the applicant said between 3 and 6 feet, and everybody's assuming 6 feet for everything. So I think we need to have the applicant come back again.
Back from there, it's awfully difficult to see that, with the little where it elevates there.
Yep.
And, I'd just like to know how that's going to affect my property there.
Okay.
The drainage.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. But
Thank you.
One more thing, why, with the water that comes down off of Quayle Street from higher up, off of the Lakewood side, that really pours down there. I don't see how they're going to channel that through that small channel that they intend to put there to retain it from going down Quayle. I think it's still going to rush down there regardless. And as I say, it was running down there at probably 3 to 4 inches high in the street plus through our property. And one thing, I've lived there for over 30 years. And many, many years ago, when that dam was rubber for the water board, some kids got in it, they just cut a thing, and the water came up to my property when they cut that dam. So if they release water from that dam in excess, where's it going to go? If the water board releases it, because when it's full and they release it over the top there, it really comes down there. And I've seen this probably 20, 30 times in the years I've lived there.
So I don't think the applicant's going to be able to address that because that's not part of his plan. If you have concerns, he should go to Public Works. Yes. you should go to you should address the question of Public Works because it's not within the purview of the case.
I know there is a floodplain there, so will they be all required to buy
Yes.
flood insurance there?
They are outside I can speak to this. They are outside the 100-year floodplain. Therefore, they do not require, if in future the floodplain changes because it's reviewed every so many years, then the applicant, not the applicant, the homeowner would be responsible individually to get that. But right now, they've been very careful, if you look at the plans, to stay out of the floodplain, thereby eliminating any of the insurance needs or any of the oversight that's there.
I do see Lena Gulch quite frequently above its banks from where we are. Very frequent. It's not just now and again. It's probably 4 or 5 times a year it floods over the top there. And also, when we had these last rains, where it runs through the channel that runs through now, that was overflowing completely in there. It was coming out at least, I'd say, 3 to 4 to 5 feet over that there. So there's an awful lot of runoff we've got to take into consideration on these buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gibbon. So, is there anybody else that wishes to speak? You came all the way here. Come on up, please. Thank you for coming. And you're probably going to have to lower the mic.
My name is Linda Gibbard, Gibbard. I live at 3415 Quail Street, and I have lived in that house for 17 years. I have personally seen Lena Gulch over its banks, out of its banks, the ditch that runs down through the field, the backfield flooded, and when it rains and that water is rushing down Lena Gulch, if I stand out on the deck off of our master bedroom, the sound is deafening from that water roaring through that gulch. So I don't know how to say it nicely, but I would think that everyone involved in this, with all the resistance that you're meeting from the property owners that surround that area, I think that you're missing an opportunity to just say, you know, maybe this wasn't meant to be. And when you lay into the facts that I personally would not build a house where I had to have a lot of fill dirt, and I wouldn't build a house that I'd like to know from these people who are intent to give the city of Wheat Ridge, 14 more roofs? Are all these beautiful homes going to have sump pumps in their basements? So that's a question I would like to know. But personally, I would not encourage anyone to buy that property or build a house on it. It's a lot of money. We already have houses that have been sitting there vacant, and we have houses that don't really fit in with the rest of the neighborhood. And these, from what I saw tonight, that the developer is quite proud of those homes. That we don't live in Greenwood Village. We don't live in Highlands Ranch. We live in Wheat Ridge. And I think that y'all are trying to, you know, you can make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, I think, in your mind, but it's not going to happen. Those houses are going to look very much out of place. They're going to be in harm's way, and I think you're asking for nothing but more headaches. How are you going to deal with the water coming down from Lakewood? What happens if Lakewood decides to do something above us? Because that water is flowing down from 27th Avenue and beyond, where the hill, when you come over the hill on Sims, you have all that moisture coming down with a lot of power. You can't stop it. So I don't know if there's some way to invent something that just magically makes rain stop falling. I'd like to know what that is. So anyway, thank you very much for your time. I have no questions. I just think that sometimes the handwriting needs to be on the wall and it needs to be read. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for speaking. Is there anybody else? Okay. I'm going to close the public comment. And I'm going to go back to the applicant and ask him to, if you're willing to address some of the questions that were raised. Thank you.
I think we'll be happy to address any and all the questions.
Thank you.
Is there a particular order or?
Well, let's talk about, can you show the cross-section again with the, can you raise your mic a little bit?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So, well, I'm going to let the engineer speak to this. The unfortunate thing is that people who are involved with this type of business can be fearful of so many different things, and without having the knowledge of engineers or people who've been in the business. And I'm not trying to belittle that. All I'm saying is that maybe if somebody's up here talking about heart surgery, maybe I'd be saying the same kind of thing. The whole comment about raising the site 6 feet, that is not correct. There's many areas that there's nothing. What we indicated earlier in the meeting is that on average it's going to be 3 feet. And this only abuts currently 4 homes, and the grade will butt directly up to their property. If this is the property line along the 4 homes that are along that street, and as you can see, at each instance, we match the grade. So we're not, this is not, I'll be silly, this dirt isn't going up like this and then back down. And what it is that what we try to do is create a soft, subtle environment that would allow for us, one, to maintain a nice visual as well as a very usable yard. And I can have the engineer speak more of that should you choose to. What was the next question, ma'am?
There was a question with regards to on the far west side of the property.
Yes.
The ditch, is it going to be an open water ditch? Or is it going to be piped? Is it go under or over 33rd? Ah, right. Yep.
I'll let the engineer speak to that.
Thank you.
Yes, if you look on the west side here where the concern is, what we have is a pipe that goes from an inlet that collects the water from the road and is conveyed north and up into this water quality pond. There is a ditch that's being constructed along the west edge of of the driveway that goes back to lot 11 and along the west side of that lot and goes into the water quality pond. I want to address it from the perspective of what's the purpose of that ditch. That ditch is there solely and is sized solely for the purpose of, A, if this inlet here gets clogged up and can't convey the flows, it doesn't flow onto her property. And B is we were required, if you know, the church here has a detention pond. If their inlet gets clogged or their outlet gets clogged, then what happens is they have an emergency spillway that sits here, and that would enter onto the street and then would be conveyed also down that swale. And that swale was designed to take the combination of both those flows should that happen in some unforeseen circumstance.
Thank you. And then there was a comment about a 3-foot high concrete wall.
There's a 3-foot high concrete wall along the side of the driveway, and it's primarily to make sure that that ditch works, but it's not 3 foot high all the way along it. And I would like to go back to the cross sections. Oh, wait. Okay. Here. As you can see, by the time we get to the north side, there is no wall. The wall actually ends just at about the foundation of that lot 11. So on the total north side of the project, that there is no wall, and there's a small wall, like in this cross section where that wall is about probably 1.5 feet. So it goes from zero about 10, 20 feet from the roadway, then it goes up to a 3-foot high max, and then it kind of comes back down. And I'll let Bill address this, but I think it's also another point that we haven't made as far as maintenance on this project. They are patio homes, and they will be maintained. The entire project landscaping is maintained by the homeowners association.
Okay. Okay, and then, so just to repeat, so the concrete wall, I understand it daylights and flattens out, but it's there to basically ensure that the swale maintains its structure.
That's correct, and I doubt it will be concrete. I'll bet it'll be some kind of modular block.
Okay.
But it won't be an unattractive wall.
Okay. What else am I missing? Did I catch them all? Go. Yeah, go.
Just a quick question. I'm looking at the staff's Exhibit 6. It's the cross-section locations. I think it's something maybe you guys submitted. There's some contours in there. It's an overlay on a aerial photograph that then has some contours along with the lot lines. I was just wondering if offhand you knew what the contour interval was on that, just so I can get some sense of.
Probably a foot.
A foot? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Ohm.
I have one question that kind of pertains to the flag lot and the 24-foot wide driveway. Typically, I see a lot of, like for long driveways, I see an average width of, say, 15 feet. And I guess my kind of question is, right there what you're showing is, these trees and stuff, is there's going to be, my understanding is that the width of that is 44 feet.
43 3/4 feet, yes, sir.
Okay. And then we subtract the 24-foot driveway, so we're left with, I'm going to guess and say 10 foot on either side of that driveway?
I believe it to be 9 feet on either side for landscaping.
Okay, and so of that 9 foot, then we're going to have a 1 foot concrete wall, and then that's going to need a little bit of how big is that swell? And then my second question to that is, pertaining to that swell, can you put, you're showing these trees and stuff in there, can you put trees and shrubs in there, or is that going to impede the flow of that drainage swell?
No, it would be the intention to put it near the top of the swale along the driveway itself. Because 24 feet, I have that exhibit I showed you of these other houses, that street, the asphalt's 21.5 feet. So this being 24 feet, and those cars are designed to be to scale there, so you can see how much room that we have there on the driveway itself. And the swale, maybe Mark, do you recall how wide that swale is?
That swale, I believe, is about 8 feet wide. However, that includes 1 foot of freeboard. So really, we're only using up 4 feet of it for the actual overflow situation.
Okay.
And so there's room to put trees and some shrubbery.
Okay, thank you.
So since we started, Commissioner Pop?
I don't have any questions right now.
Commissioner Timms?
No questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Dorsey?
No questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Weaver? No questions. Sorry. Commissioner Buckman?
No, I already asked mine. Thanks.
Okay. And I have no other questions.
Thank you.
Please.
I do have one comment. I've actually been building for 38 years. I'm 64 years old and have built, to be quite honest, thousands of units. Having been addressed with this, hiring competent engineers and working with competent staff, and I can appreciate the comments been made here because of the type of storms, but we are out of that 100-year storm range. And for us, the kind of drainage study that has been done here, it wasn't something that was taken lightly. and was truly designed. Now, having said that, I think, I believe the staff engineers have reviewed this diligently, and maybe you ought to ask them if they think there's going to be an issue here. Thank you.
Thank you. So I am going to close the public hearing. And I am going to ask, we'll discuss after, but I'm going to ask for a motion.
Chair, I'll make a motion. I move to recommend approval of case number WS-14-02, a request for approval of a 13-lot major subdivision plat for property located at 3301 and 3345 Quail Street for the following reasons. 1, the revised subdivision plat is consistent with the approval by the Army Corps of Engineers. The proposed lots meet or exceed the R1 zone district regulations. All requirements of the subdivision regulations have been met. Utility districts can serve the property with improvements installed at the developer's expense, with the following conditions. 1, a subdivision improvement agreement be executed whereby all public improvements are in place prior to issuance of building permits for individual lots. 2, the developer pay parks fees at the time of plat recording in the amount of $32,464.77. 3, the homeowners association covenants be reviewed and approved by staff.
Second.
Discussion. Bless you. Ms. Weaver.
While I very much appreciate the applicant's redo of the overall site, I think the engineering is good, and I don't find the plan to be not likable. Am I not speaking into the microphone? I really feel like we haven't gotten enough information from the city about what the impact of this drainage will be on the rest of Lena Gulch. I can't explain, for those of you who didn't experience it, the catastrophic flooding down that gulch, and just I've had similar experiences to a lot of the things that have been said. And I just feel like there needs to be some more comprehensive explanation of the impact of that water on the other properties, because I think when you're dealing with a property like this, and we know that there is a water feature right next to it that floods, we have to have more consideration beyond the development, but how it's going to affect every single property and downstream versus upstream when we have something like consolidated releasing flows and changing a lot of the game depending on the situation. So unfortunately, I will not be able to support this motion. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Discussion? Please vote.
Motion approved, 4-3.
So let me explain what's going to happen now. This is going to City Council on a date to be determined. It's a date set, yes? Yes, it is. So this is heard by City Council. It's on the agenda for an upcoming meeting. You are obviously all welcome to go and speak before City Council and share your comments. They will have our report and all your comments as part of the written record that they review, and then they'll obviously go to the property. They cannot speak to you off the record on this, so please don't call them. They can't talk to you. It's quasi-judicial. I can't say that right now. So they can't speak to you. They can hear your comments at the meeting. And the date is?
September 22nd.
September 22nd is the date that the City Council will hear this. Okay? We have another case to hear, so we're going to, why don't we just take a break? for 10 minutes and let everybody clear out, and then we will hear the other case. How's that? Thank you. we have another case. Thank you in the audience. Next case. Case number WZ 1406, a request filed by Kalier Capital LLC for approval of a zone change from residential 2 to planned residential development PRD with an outline development plan for property located at 7671 West 32nd Avenue and 3299 Wadsworth Boulevard.
Thank you. Again, for the record, Meredith Record, Wheat Ridge Community Development Department, and I am solo on this, so bear with me. Property in question is located at 7671 West 32nd and 3299 Wadsworth. 3.48 acres in size, currently zoned R2.
3.48. You're welcome.
I'd like to enter into the record the comprehensive plan, zoning ordinance, case file, and packet materials, and
Accepted.
the contents of this digital presentation.
Accepted.
All notification and posting requirements have been met, therefore there is jurisdiction to hear this case. So, again, we are revisiting a case that Planning Commission reviewed earlier, specifically on June 19th, 2014, and recommended approval. Subsequent to that hearing, but prior to City Council, the applicant realized that there were several of the proposed parcels which could not accommodate some of the proposed models due to the maximum building coverage shown on the ODP that y'all recommended approval of 40%. The applicant is requesting that maximum to be reconsidered to better accommodate the proposed development, and we decided that it needed to go back to Planning Commission for your input. So this is the property in question. It is outlined in red. 32nd Avenue runs along the south side with Wadsworth over here on the east. And just a little bit of information. The application is for approval of a planned residential development, and the city's planned development process actually includes 2 steps. The first one is for the zone change and approval of the outline development plan, or ODP. The ODP document, which is the big pieces of paper you have, establishes permitted uses and development standards for the property, and it also contains a general layout of the property as far as where areas of landscaping are proposed, parking, building footprints, and so on. The development standards that are required to be included on the ODP document include a list of the permitted land uses, minimum lot size, minimum perimeter setbacks, maximum building height, and actually that should be maximum lot coverage. And so that is why we are revisiting this particular approval, is to take a look at that maximum building coverage being proposed. So this is the second sheet of the original ODP document that you saw on June 19th. There have been no changes to this sheet. We're still showing the cul-de-sac entering in off 32nd Avenue and then extending to the north into a cul-de-sac bulb. The detention areas are still the same. There's one located in this location, one up here at the north, and then some other fire access, water line access, and another small detention pond in the flag piece that extends out to Wadsworth. This is the revised first sheet of the new outline development plan we're looking at. Everything is the same except for note number 2. And I don't have the language exactly in front of me, but they talk about an average on the overall development with maximum building coverage not to exceed more than 46.5%. With regard to the two different versions, the one that you looked at on June 19th and the one we're looking at tonight, August 21st, I've tried to include a listing of what's the same and what's the difference. So the number of lots is shown as 20 on both. That has not changed. The minimum lot area on both versions of the outline development plan is 3,500 square feet with 45 feet of lot width. That has not changed. The building height is a maximum of 35 feet. Again, no change for that. Setbacks remain the same on both documents, a 10-foot front setback, 5-foot side setbacks, and a 15-foot rear setback. The building coverage, again, is the one item that we're looking at. Currently on the June 19th version, there was a maximum of 40% for all models. In this revision, and pursuant to note 2 that they've got on the front sheet, they're suggesting 46.5%. When we looked at it, we tried to think a little bit more critically about it. The two-story models are not the ones that are the problem. We think those should remain at 40%. It's for the single stories where they are trying to accommodate what's expected by contemporary home buyers, and probably would need to have a little bit more square footage. And we're suggesting that that note number 2 be modified to be consistent with staff's note right here about 50% for a single story unit, 40% for a two-story unit. The applicant did provide an exhibit where all the lots are laid out with the home model templates, have been identified to illustrate where the increased building coverage would be applicable. They also provided this chart that shows, that relates back to this map that was included in your packet, and I can go to that right now, which shows the theoretical layout in which types of models would be located on which of the lots. And again, according to the analysis they have provided, the lots which need an increase in lot coverage would be the single-story ranch homes or Model A shown on the plan. And according to their analysis of the square footage and the footprints, they're looking at up to a 46.45% total maximum. We think that we'd like a little bit more wiggle room in case, you never know what will happen. And so we're suggesting that that percentage be increased to 50%, but just for single-story models. So again, we've looked at and considered the potential impact on the development and the surrounding neighborhood, and we've concluded that the proposed single-story models will complement and be consistent with the single-family homes to the west. We think it also might provide an incentive for additional single-story models to be built. So we are giving a recommendation of approval. We've concluded that the proposed PRD development and outline development plan are consistent with the goals and policies of the city's guiding documents, including the Wadsworth Sub-Area Plan, the Neighborhood Revitalization Strategy, and Envision Wheat Ridge. We further conclude that the proposed zoning and density provides a logical land use transition between Wadsworth and some of the surrounding higher density developments and the neighborhood to the west. And with regard to the increase in building coverage, we have concluded that the increase building coverage for single-story models should not be detectable and could encourage construction of more of the ranch-style models, which would complement the neighborhood to the west. And we are given a recommendation of approval, and we have 4 notes that, 4 conditions that are being added to the motion. The first 3, which talks about additional architecture at SDP, the schematic detail, and the tree-friendly plan were taken directly from Planning Commission's motion on June 19th. We have added the 4th condition, that note number 2 on the front page of the ODP be modified to allow the 50% coverage for single-story buildings. So that is my presentation, and if you have questions, I will try to answer those.
Thank you. I'll start to my left. Commissioner Buckman.
I just keep looking at the lack of sidewalk on the. I know I said it like 100 times last time. I'm just going to bring it up again. I don't think it's a good idea. I know we talked about it, so I'm not going to
I was gonna say,
harp on it anymore, but
okay.
was there any consideration by the applicant when they were, say, asking for more coverage on their lots to maybe move those lots 1 through 6, the fronts of those west a little more so they could shift the street over a little more
And then we need a building coverage of 60%.
well, as long as you're asking for,
I'm not sure if that was anything they had considered.
all right.
We did have a lot of conversation about the sidewalk and the issue with crosswalks and so on and so forth, so.
It's still, I know it's not the focus of the reason why we're revisiting this, but the public safety concern is still a concern of mine. Thanks. That's all I have to, only question or comment I had.
Thank you. Commissioner Weaver.
Thank you, Meredith. Quick question. So I am counting that 6 of the homes go over the 40%. Is that correct?
I do not have my complete staff report. I could go grab it.
It's okay. I'm
That sounds
circling
right.
on the Yukon Grove. I'm okay with 6 going up to 50%. Can we limit it though? My concern would be that what if they decide that they want all of them to be single story? And now we've got an entire development of 50%, and that seems sort of inconsistent with all of our plan values with Wheat Ridge and all the work that you all have done to create those standards.
What you might want to consider is to bump the percentage up, but maybe include language, but not to exceed.
6 parcels?
Or, yeah, I don't know if that's the magic number exactly, but that would be something you'd want to discuss with the developer, if they'd be willing to do that.
Okay, all right. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Dorsey.
I have a question.
Thank you. Commissioner Timms.
No questions for staff, thank you.
Commissioner Pop.
I wasn't here when the original hearing was held. Am I limited to asking questions that are only related to, no? Okay.
I think so.
I have some strong concerns about the traffic, and I noticed that in the letter of request, it makes reference to a traffic impact study. Do you have a copy of that, or is there anywhere I can see a copy of that?
I have a copy in the case file.
Okay.
If you're interested.
Yeah, I'm really concerned. I drive through 32nd every day, and the existence of the apartments there is very unique to the area. Everything else is mostly single-family residences, so I'm extremely concerned about squeezing this number of units onto such a small footprint, and the traffic that would be generated by it, but I know something more for the applicant, so I was just curious about that study.
Okay.
Thanks.
Commissioner Ohm.
Could you go to sheet ODP-2?
Is that the, okay. I'm going the wrong way.
Might be towards the end, if you have it.
Sorry.
Maybe not. Yeah, that's it right there. I guess the first question I have is along the west side of Tract A, is there an existing or proposed fence?
The developer intends on building a 6-foot solid fence.
Okay. That brings up a life safety issue. I'm concerned that the placement of that proposed crosswalk right there, that there's going to be some sight distance visibility issue. If that becomes a solid fence right there on that corner, as someone is coming from the 32nd Avenue coming into the development and rounding that corner, I'd be hard pressed to see someone crossing that crosswalk right there, and I think that's a poor placement of a crosswalk.
Actually, I don't know if Public Works even looked at that. We can take another look at that and get, I tend to agree with you that somebody you know, in either position, if you put it over here or over here, there's always the tendency that someone could come quickly around the corner, so.
In the previous case that was related to this, we had discussed a possibility of a crosswalk somewhere between lot 20 and 7.
So right in here.
Yeah, and so if staff could take a look at that, that is,
We can do that.
it's a real concern of mine.
I'd appreciate it, Mr. Ohm, if you added that as a condition.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Scott? Nothing? Okay. Any other questions of staff before we move to the applicant? Okay. Thank you. Good evening. How are you? Good.
RITZ, 10827 Bobcat Terrace.
Bill, raise your mic, yeah, and talk closer to it, yeah.
10827 Bobcat Terrace, Littleton, 80124.
Talk close to it. It doesn't pick up very
Sorry
well.
about that. Okay.
Thanks.
Well, first of all, thank you for hearing us again. Sorry to have to bring you all back here for this, but when we first started doing this, we got things have always been changing. And when we did the last ODP, the 40% showed up, and we thought we were fine. And then as the lots got a little smaller, and when we saw it, we getting a lot of calls from people saying we hear about this, and we want ranch-style homes, and we started getting some ranches designed, and all of a sudden we're thinking, whoops, we have a little problem here when it said ODP said 40%. So that's when we came up and redid it and had the architect come up with some designs, and that's when we came back to Meredith and said, we want some ranches, the community wants some ranch-style homes, but in order to do that, we need a little bit more coverage. We're not changing the setbacks or anything like that, the easements at all. We just need a little more coverage, and that's why we've had to go to this. And some of the ranches won't even fit on some of the lots. That's why, for example, lots 1 through 6 will be all 2 stories, because I mean, if we did a ranch on that, we played with it a little bit, and it would look like like we're building a garage with an attached house. So we figured that's not going to work. So that's what. Excuse me. So that's why we have come back, and just for a little clarification, and to make the community look great, and to try to provide as many ranch-style homes as possible, since the community seems like that's what they want, but to still make it work.
Thank you. Did you want to, are you ready to take questions of the?
Yes,
Perfect.
Meredith always does a great job for us, so I don't really have to show anything else.
Okay, so Commissioner Bucknam.
No chance of a sidewalk there? No, east side? Thank you.
Robert Nettleton, Nettleton, 220 South Cherry Street, Denver. When we spoke about the sidewalk last time, there's a 5-foot landscape buffer there. So we're happy, if you'd rather have a sidewalk than the landscaping, I think the staff's recommendation was to keep a landscape buffer as a better amenity than the sidewalk. And from a development standpoint, a sidewalk's going to be less money than a landscape buffer. And the thought was that in Wheat Ridge, very few streets have sidewalks on both sides, and with a limited number of children that are going to be in this neighborhood crossing there, the crosswalk was the appropriate solution. Also, just to clarify, when we're talking about the solid fences, we're talking about the solid fences along the rear property lines to create a buffer between our new development and existing developments. This internal fence here, we envision this more as an open rail fence, because there's green space back in here and there's a lot of trees back in here. There's no reason to really compartmentalize this community from the landscaping and the green spaces that exist along this perimeter. So yeah, I would agree with you. This would be a horrible situation from a viewport or coming around that corner. So just want to clarify that would be an open rail, and I think the crosswalk would be better suited down in there.
Thanks.
So my question was, I'm counting 6 Model A's
Correct.
would you be willing to limit to 6?
Well, I would like to limit it, say, to 8, just in case we can get some on other ones. That's because that's what, so far, the community phone calls coming to me saying, we want a ranch, we want a ranch.
But you'd be willing to limit it to 8?
Yes, so we have, I mean, yeah, I'd like to limit it to 20, but I can't.
I realize that. I think that's my concern.
So limit it to 8 would be fine.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
If we went to 8, limited it to 8, where would those extra 2 be placed on the plan?
Right now, that's kind of a tough one to answer because of another situation that we're dealing with, and that is if on these lots 7 to 14, right between that and the property to the west, there is a gap, a 5.5-foot gap that kind of doesn't belong to anybody. And the planning department and all doesn't really want to have a gap back there. And so we're trying to figure out how we just incorporate that. If we do, then our lots are going to grow. And we don't know if our lots are going to grow or not until we talk to the homeowners on the west side, and we talk to them about making sure that they don't have a problem. They don't, nobody right now, nobody shows that anybody owns that land. It's just vacant. But if the property on the west, the property owners west, they have their fence, and if we put our fence up, there'll be a 5.5-foot gap between the 2 properties that is going to be a problem for upkeep, for vagrant, all kinds of problems. But that is an unknown at the present time because we haven't gotten to that point to try to establish with the neighbors to the west what's going to happen there or not happen there.
That's it.
Commissioner Timms?
No questions for applicant, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Pop?
I was just wondering if you could address some of my concerns regarding potential traffic increase. And I thank you, Meredith, for providing me with the traffic study, which I just quickly perused. But some of it, especially if the age group that you're attracting is right here, I mean, I moved to Wheat Ridge. I'm a young professional. My husband is a young professional. We both work in Denver. I think we're your perfect candidates. We both drive every day into work. We have different schedules. I'd love to bike. There's not really good bike lanes into downtown. I don't want to risk my extensive student loan background getting smashed on my way to work. So we drive. 23 units, everyone driving. I think it's going to be a little more than is estimated in here. And as is noted in here, the pedestrian options are far and few in between right now along Wadsworth. We live along 38th and don't even feel safe walking the dogs along there. So I just foresee a lot of traffic, especially, like I said, I drive through that intersection in the mornings and I even leave a little earlier. I don't know how people are going to make it out of the neighborhood. So I'm just wondering why, what are your reasons for having the number of units that you want to have there, and obviously moving it to a higher density zoning, and what you anticipate with regard to the traffic?
First of all, I'm not a traffic engineer, so I can only tell you what the report said, and that is when they look at, the engineers look at all their scales and all their things, that having 20 units has basically almost no impact on what's going on. As far as why we have 20 units there is we really originally wanted 28. All of our original numbers were on 28, we revised them to 26, then 24, then 21, and now 20. But all of our costs were based on 24. And so if we could just say, hey, we can build one house and charge enough for that one house to pay for all this, I'd be real happy to do that. But now we're squeezing profit margins, everything we can, but to still have a nice neighborhood. And plus, people want this kind of house. So people, we're getting, besides, we expect to hopefully attract people like yourself, but we also know we're going to get a lot of older people moving down that want to have a smaller. So it's not going to be 20, unfortunately, 20, I can't say fortunately or unfortunately, but there's not going to be 20 people just like yourself. They're going to be all age range. There's going to be a lot of retired people that aren't going to be getting on the roads when you want to get on the roads. But so we've tried to make a very nice neighborhood that fits the new urban design, and still be able to make it to where it works, and we don't have to walk away from this and say the cost won't work for what we're trying to accomplish here.
Sure, and urban is a word that I've heard a lot and that I read in some of the reports, but right in the same sentence I saw words like smaller, I'm trying to pull this, but it just seemed to me that it was a bit incompatible with Wheat Ridge, because I know why we first moved here and what attracted us to this city. And so the Highlands is the Highlands and Denver is Denver, but Wheat Ridge has a certain identity that, I'm not trying to dissuade development, but I think the lot sizes and the size of the homes is a huge attraction for people to move to Wheat Ridge, and I think that's something that we should preserve.
I don't really have a response.
Just so, I'd like to just interject, Silka. We did have the traffic report that was submitted. Our Public Works Department reviewed it, had no comments. As far as it being sort of a different style for the city, it is different. But all of our adopted documents, guiding documents, where we reference those when we look at land use applications, and all three of those that I cited just a minute ago, I think it was Envision Wheat Ridge, the Wadsworth Sub-Area Plan, and the Neighborhood Revitalization Strategy, all of those identified the need for alternate types of living situations for folks. Granted, yeah, we have a lot of the large lot, single family, but a lot of other folks are looking for the small lot with the smaller house. So, staff did give a recommendation and work with the applicant kind of based on those documents that have been reviewed and approved by City Council. So that's.
And I did review those and some of the goals. I know the 2006 denial was also based on those same documents, and I realized that there are a lot of changes between the 2006 development and this proposed one, so I'm acknowledging that. I just don't know that it's gone far enough, but that's just an opinion, I'm sorry, not so much a question.
Thank you. Commissioner Ohm.
I might have one more question.
Commissioner Dorsey.
On 32nd Avenue, there's a bus stop just prior to the entrance here that sort of bothers me. I travel 32nd Avenue every day. And is there a possibility to have RTD move that bus stop further to the west? Or somehow incorporated a bus stop where the bus isn't going to be in the 32nd Avenue traffic so that people can get out of this property?
So I will tell you from experience, from past planning commission experience, the reason they put a bus stop where it is for two reasons: so that people can connect, and for the vision impaired. So they know exactly that there is a bus stop 30 steps or 60 steps or however many steps away from that street. So there's two reasons. Again, the connection so that people can run from one bus to another, and the visually impaired so they know exactly. Now, there's some obviously variations to that based on previous property. That's my experience, because we've asked that in previous, so I will tell you now, I can't answer for the applicant, but I can tell you why they put them where they put them.
Well, that answers that part of the question, but the big problem I have is the bus stop is close to the new street we're putting in here, and with a bus sitting in 32nd Avenue without a drive-off for the bus, it's almost impossible if the bus is sitting there to make a left turn out of the new development onto 32nd Avenue. I mean, it just, because people then are going to be trying to come around this bus that's sitting there going west on 32nd Avenue. I mean, that's going to be a real dangerous point right there.
Is that a motion that the city discussed with RTD or no? I know they are.
Pressed to get them to move it. And if you think about how 32nd lays out, there's probably going to be some visual obstruction by the bus somewhere, whether it's Allison, Ammons, Balsam. You know, there's never a good location when you've got all the cross streets coming in. So, I mean, I can have our engineers take a look at it, but my sense is I wouldn't think RTD would be supportive of that.
Is there room on 32nd to do a pull-off like we do on 38th?
No.
Any of those?
Not with the existing right-of-way.
Okay.
You can make an emotion, you can make a part of the. You could add that as a condition, that staff reach out to RTD, yep. Any other comments? Any other questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you very much for coming in. So now is the time for the public hearing, the public to speak. We have one person signed up. If anybody wants to speak after this person is signed up, then we'll do the same drill we did before. So I have Daniel Boyes, sorry. I know you came before.
I thought that was a sign sheet.
No. It's all good. Make sure and lift the mic. You're tall.
Talking to you?
Talking to me or talking to us. Yes.
I wasn't sure what to expect because I'm right across the ditch from where you guys are building, and I had heard that 2006 was Section 8 and it got shot down, which I was glad. So just a few things. I kind of like what these guys are doing. I have a question. It was too quick about the fences. Is there a fence along the ditch? Not a big deal, just wondering. Let's see. Then the bus stop, unless they've changed it, it's right next to the gas station. The bus comes across Wadsworth and stops right next to the gas station. Then there's another apartment building, and then the driveway for this. And like the lady said, no matter where you put it, somebody's sight triangle is going to be obstructed. As far as, I heard Ms. Pop say the word apartments. This is not apartments. This is all houses. Okay. Scratch that one off. Scratch that one off. And then your objection, let me find the name here.
Dorsey.
Weaver, who I've agreed with almost all night. But the thing about restricting them to 6 or 8 buildings, I don't quite get that. I don't know how many of you, because, well, maybe one of you were there, but I've heard in the grocery store and everywhere else, I've been here for 36 years now, Wheat Ridge is Geezerville. That's what everybody around here calls Wheat Ridge, is Geezerville. And these, so 50% of 3,500 would be 1,750 ranch-style houses as a almost geezer with pieces missing out of both of my knees. I want a place on one floor. And I think that these houses, if they're allowed to build them, depending on who you're marketing to, I mean, if you're trying to get kids and young professionals who might have kids and all that, but if you've got those houses in there, people like me would be tempted to buy them. So I think, you know, maybe at least split the difference with them. It looks like there's enough lots, although I don't understand how those 6 lots, which appear to be more square than rectangles, why they're smaller than the other ones. I don't get that. And then there was, oh, the other thing about the image of Wheat Ridge, that was from you. You know, you ride around Wheat Ridge, and like I say, I've been here for a long time, and I moved here from Illinois, and my buddy lived here for a long time before I got here. And so I've looked around at the nice little brick houses and all that kind of stuff. You want to talk about a diversion from the image of Wheat Ridge, go down and look at the McMansions down on 38th Avenue. I mean, what they want to do compared to what they've already done and what they're continuing to do down there, I don't see any difference, just in a different direction. Maybe because there's more taxes on a $5 million house, but I don't know. And it's 3.48 acres?
Yes.
And that's the little finger that comes out to Wadsworth and the finger that goes out to 32nd, and the whole shebang is 3.45 or 4. That's good. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in. Is there anybody else that would, pardon me, come on up, please. Please, sorry. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for sticking around. First name, last name, spell the last name. You have the drill.
I'm going to have to spell the whole thing.
Okay.
My name is Lisa, L-E-S-A, Mullaney Meeks, M-U-L-L-A-N-E-Y -M-E-E-K-S. And basically I'm addressing comments, sorry.
Address.
Address.
Oh, 4583 Allison Street in Wheat Ridge. Basically, I'm going to address, just like the gentleman did before, some of the comments made by the commissioners themselves. I've lived in Wheat Ridge for 35 years. I currently own a ranch, but my property square footage is 6,000 square feet. I don't want to leave Wheat Ridge. I need to go downsize. I need a property that's smaller. I need a property that's a ranch, because I also have replacement parts in my knees. Stairs are not appropriate for me. I love this community. I've been very active in this community for the 35 years that I've lived here, through my husband being on a commission with the city, to PTA, to working within the city. And we need places for people like me to be able to stay within our community, but to be able to move to houses that they can live in. The new senior housing that's gone on over by First Bank, they were booked up before they even got the place finished, because people love living in Wheat Ridge, and we want to stay here. And I appreciate the fact that younger couples want to move in and buy my house. I'll move out, move to something smaller, and you buy my house. And then we'll both be happy. And as far as the sidewalk goes, my neighborhood has been in existence for 50 years. We don't have sidewalks. Nobody wants to put them in because they like the feeling of no sidewalks. Personally, I'm with you. I like my sidewalks, but there's a lot of communities in Wheat Ridge, as you drive through here, and I've driven through here a lot, that don't have sidewalks. So I appreciate what you're saying, but if it was going to be a family with community with lots of kids, that would be a big difference. But I appreciate you guys listening to me tonight, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody? Come on up, please. I think I recognize you. First name, last name, spell the last name, please.
My name is Mike Green. I live at 3310 Yarrow, which is directly to the west of the new development. You open the can of worms with the sidewalk thing again. If you want a sidewalk and you're concerned about the little kids, what are you going to do when the kids get to 32nd? The only sidewalk available to them is on the south side of 32nd, and you take in no consideration when they get to that point. I don't mean to be rude, but I'm kind of offended that you think that me, anybody in this room, or future people are not smart enough to teach their kids how to cross a street. I get that you want safety in there, and I was misquoted in the paper. Everybody says it was me, and if it was me, I was misquoted. I don't have a problem with safety that's being designed into these neighborhoods. We need that. I understand that they had to lose a lot over the fact that they had to be able to get emergency equipment in and out. I don't have an issue with that. What I have an issue with is when you continue to take away ground and it makes it more expensive for people to develop. You made a comment about you like the atmosphere or the whatever of Wheat Ridge. Well, if you look at Wheat Ridge is becoming nothing more than high-rise rentals anymore. There are no real nice, accommodating single-family homes. There's no land large enough, and the land that's large enough, some people want to put larger houses on. Well, I don't know if I agree or disagree with that. That's not up to me. But for people that would like to have that, this is what we have. There was consideration for 3 or 4 unit deal with 80 units in there. I mean, you're concerned about traffic now. You wanted 80 units in here. Or 40 units, which gives you a minimum of 80 cars plus. We're talking 20. And most of these houses will probably only have 1 car. We don't know, right? I mean, because the covenants are probably going to tell you can't park on the street. There's not room on the street. So they want everybody in the car, and the garages in the backyard. That's the identity of Wheat Ridge. Wheat Ridge likes to be, we've always had this kind of, I guess if you want to call it a bedroom community is fine. It's nice. But I still like to see the fact that people can have an individual house. I happen to live in a duplex. I grew up in that house. So I'm not opposed to duplexes, but I like the idea of having single-family homes. And people are. I mean, look at what they've done with Stapleton. I'm not a big fan of the density of Stapleton, but most people are. I like what these people have put together. They look like they've taken the time to do something that's not just thrown up with cheap siding. They've got some stone, they've got some landscaping stuff. They've tried to bring the community to the front of the house. I like their sales pitch. I like the product that they're trying to put up. I like the project, but and RTD, the bus stops almost on 32nd. I don't know where else you're going to put it. That is a problem. I agree with that. But that's not these guys' problem. I don't think you should make it their issue to correct something that they have nothing to do with. When you turn around and you already have 2, you have a gas station for one that has how many cars a day go in and out of that when RTD shows up, there's a problem. You already have a real small unit that's there that has cars in it, and then you have the larger unit behind it that dump traffic there. But you didn't make them change anything that I know of. They're in. So I'd really like to see the project go. I like what they have, and I have a problem with trying to restrict them on whether or not they can have a 2-story versus how many single family 2 stories or or ranch-style houses. I think you're overreaching at that point. As long as they can fit it onto what you guys have approved, then I think they should be able to build all the ranches they want. Obviously, for whatever reason, they can't on the first, 6 lots or whatever it is that comes in, because they've been squeezed down for whatever reason they have had to be squeezed down. But for the rest of them, I think it should be open to the rest of the 14 units, 16 units, whatever it is. My math's not very good. I don't know. I like to see the project go. I think they've done a good job with it. Some of the concerns I hear are just, I don't understand I don't understand the process. Maybe I'm just ignorant. But I would like to see it go. So I think I've hopefully have addressed those issues. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else out there? Okay. I'm going to close the public comment. Thank you. And do we need the applicant does anybody need the applicant to speak again? No. Oh, come on up. I might have missed it, sorry.
The one question about the
Fence?
fence across.
Yes.
We'll probably make that a split rail fence like most places, like when we'll call it open space, have a split rail fence across there.
By the ditch, the
Yeah.
fence by the ditch. Okay.
The Rocky Mountain ditch, yeah.
Okay.
The other thing too is this brought up when we talk about limiting it to 8 ranch-style homes. It'd be nice if instead of just saying ranch-style homes, in case over time somebody says they do want some smaller houses, maybe just limit it to, we would only have 8 homes that were in 50% or 50%, and then maybe some other that were less than that, something. So we could put if we did come up with a smaller ranch, I'm not sure we would.
A smaller ranch model.
A small ranch model.
Got it.
So that basically because the one we have is basically 1,300 square feet. But if we found one of the 1,100 square feet, if we designed one, then we could get
More ranches.
and still be below the 50% or 48, but it would be a different ranch style. So instead of just saying 8 ranch style plans, we say we would only have 8 that would be 50%.
That would be a better.
Yeah, I'd like that.
If that
If it's even consideration of an option.
The person I work for was very specific about trying to keep the limitation for the ranch homes. So
Off or included?
those be the only ones that have the ability to go over 40%. Or unless I misunderstood what
I
you
think
just
you misunderstood. So basically, he's saying instead of limiting it to 8 ranches,
Okay.
he's saying, can you say that only 8 ranches could go up to 50%, but they could turn some of these other 2-story into ranches if they have a different ranch plan.
Okay.
And so they could actually have.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. Sorry about that.
I'm arguing your fact, but yeah.
better job than I did.
It's been a long day.
Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes.
So if they come up with a 1,100 or a 1,000 square foot ranch, and they want to swap it out for a 2-story, if the motion said 8 ranch, then he wouldn't be able to swap out a 2-story for a 1,000 or 1,100 square foot ranch.
Okay.
He's willing to do only 8 can go up to 50%. Does that make sense? Yes. I understand it.
May I ask a question? Okay, so, because I'm thinking about how to write this, so 8 models can go
up to
50%.
All others need to conform to the 40.
And again, we wanted to restrict the increase to the ranch styles.
That's okay.
That's okay.
Okay.
So if
Chair
you
Brinkman,
have- yeah.
if I I'd just like to clarify for a second, the letter that was written from Martin Martin specifically says the desired development standard is maximum building coverage, 48% for single story. It doesn't say ranch, it says single story. And then it says maximum building coverage, 40% for multi-story residential. So that was in the letter, but what I'm hearing is different. It sounds like it's contradicting or something's not right.
A ranch, I mean, a ranch is a single story.
Correct.
Okay, so, and then the two-story is multi-level.
I understand that, but what the letter was asking for, and my understanding was that it was 48% for single story ranch. It wasn't asking for 48% for single story and two story. It was 40% max for wasn't
All the two-story
For the two-story, correct.
right,
are already at 40%.
We got that.
right.
We're okay. He's saying 8 of them can go up to 50% maximum coverage. If they find a smaller ranch plan and they swap out a multi-story and put a single story in, he doesn't want to be constricted to only have 8 ranches on that whole development. If she said it the way she said it, he would only be limited to 8 ranches, period. And so he's asking for it to say 8 ranches that go up to the 50%, but it would be available, you could throw another ranch in there.
But it would conform to 40%.
It would conform to
So-
the 40.
8 of the ranches
Okay.
may go up to 50%.
Chair Brinkman, I think what we're trying to say is that no more than 8 lots will be allowed to go up to 50% coverage.
But she said that it has to say ranch.
Single story.
Single story, okay. So a single story is the requirement, 8 is the requirement in terms of number. But, I mean, is ranch is a style of
That's a style, yeah.
all right.
So to clarify, it's 8 single story and the rest, single and multifamily, are 40%. Okay.
That's correct.
We're all in agreement?
Did you have any other comments or questions? Nope, okay, thank you.
I do have one thing. I was only showing 4 conditions of approval, and when we did the original meeting on June 19th, there was the friendly amendment to have staff work on the crosswalk location that I didn't include in the recommended motions, and if you still want that in there, you should go ahead and add that. Does that make sense?
I would like to make a motion. if
Are you
it's
ready to
time.
make a motion?
Yes.
Wait, are you ready to make a motion? If he doesn't include it, then you ask for a friendly amendment. Okay, we're getting ready here, guys.
I move to recommend approval of the case number WZ-14-06, request for approval of zone change from residential to R2 to planned residential commercial development, PRD, zoning in an outline development plan, ODP, on property located at 7671 West 32nd Avenue, 3299 Wadsworth Boulevard for the following reasons. The proposal is consistent with the city's guiding documents, including the Wadsworth Sub-Area Plan, the Neighborhood Revitalization Strategy, and Vision Wheat Ridge. Number 2, the proposed zoning and density provide a logical land use transition between Wadsworth, the surrounding higher density developments, and the low density neighborhood to the west. Number 3, the proposal meets the zone change criteria. Number 4, all requirements for an outline development plan have been met with the following conditions. Number 1, additional architectural design be required and reviewed at the time of the SDP. Number 2, the schematic detail for lot 720 must be revised to more accurately represent the larger narrow lots. Number 3, the developer is encouraged to work with the city forester to create a tree-friendly plan with consideration of old and new plantings. Number 4, the developer work. Number 4 will be the developer work with staff for a safe placement of crosswalk and termination of sidewalk adjacent to Tract A. Number 5, Note number 2 under development standards be modified to indicate that a maximum of 8 one-story home models are allowed a 50% building coverage, and the remainder 1 and 2-story home models have a maximum of 40% coverage.
I need a second.
Second.
Okay, discussion?
I just have a couple comments. I just want to say to the developer, I think it's refreshing to see shared driveways. I'm not sure if you flip a coin who gets a shovel of snow, but I think that's nice, and it also hides the garages. I think that's a nice feature. And that eventually, I hope that pertaining to Wheat Ridge that, we have a nice continuous sidewalk along Wadsworth that will, someday connect to the light rail station. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I have just a comment. I'm definitely in support of this motion. Despite all my crowing about sidewalk there, I do think as long as there is sort of a safe placement of a crosswalk put in over there on around Tract A, that I think is a satisfactory resolution to the concerns I have. Obviously, I live in Wheat Ridge too, and I know there are a lot of wonderful streets that don't have sidewalks, so we walk on them all the time. But I would also encourage staff and the developer to consider whether they want landscaping on that eastern edge right adjacent to 32nd Avenue, or if they would prefer a sidewalk. I think either one would probably be fine as long as there is a crosswalk option in there as well. Thanks.
Any other discussion? I have one. Sometimes it's good to be on the Planning Commission for a long time. So I was around in 2006 when the other case was heard. One of the big concerns was traffic and the fact that there was no turn light on Wadsworth from 32nd. Right after, within a month after the case was denied, the turn light was put in, which I think helped that whole flow on 32nd. I will just tell you. So we did not hear tonight 1/100th of the concerns that we heard before of the traffic. Now, granted, it's a different number of units, but I think that turn light, I turned down in there because I happened to work on somebody's driveway for snow, and I have no problems with the turn, but I will just tell you that turn signal there really helped the flow of all the traffic and accidents and all that stuff. So I just wanted to tell you that. Okay, any other discussion? Please vote.
Motion approved, 6-1. Commissioner Pop voting no.
Okay, so we're done with the cases tonight. We're now going on to other items. You're welcome to stick around. If you leave, just try to leave quietly. Meredith, do we have any other items? We do have a visitor in the room who's scoping us out. We do have a visitor in the room that's been scoping us out. Donna Kimsey. She has put in her application for District 4. Yes, District 4. She's interested. She sat through tonight and she's a trooper. No. So I just wanted to highlight, thank you for coming in. So, do we have any?
Let's see, the next meeting is September 4th, and we have one land use case, and then also a discussion about the Wadsworth Gulf that we're undertaking, which is sort of a precursor to an environmental assessment looking at impacts on properties and lighting improvements. We are trying to schedule a study session. We're hoping to have a full temporary use. That's one of the topics of discussion we'll have for the study session. Hopefully that'll be.
Hold on. Hey, guys. Psst. Bob, can you? Thank you.
So hopefully we'll have that study session within the next month or two. With the forward.
So how come esteemed Commissioner Buckingham has an idea and it comes forward, and my lighting standards that I've been asking for almost a decade can't see the light of day, no pun intended, or pun intended? I know.
We've got so many land use cases that it is good. Hopefully we have 2 new planners starting on September 8th, and when we get into the fall, hopefully it'll slow down a little bit, and then we're gonna resurrect. Yes. Some zoning codes. And you're high on the list.
The only is that I'm seeing more and more signs go up. And so they're all going to be effectively grandfathered in, I'm assuming. Yes? Yeah. So
Not the MMJ one. The people holding those on the streets. I don't think that's gonna be. Probably not.
For those of you who aren't aware, City Council passed a 90-day moratorium on Monday night against any new MJ applications, retail or medicinal.
Well,
based on an outcry from one particular neighborhood. We're not quite sure what that means, but
90 day? Okay. Thanks for. Cool. Anything else? Do we have anything else? Cool. I need a motion to adjourn.
Do a motion to adjourn.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Can we vote?
I'm sorry, I didn't have the board cleared. Should we call it 8-0?
Sure.
7-0?
no, I want to stay.